Desert Fort. One of the most detailed new additions to CTGP, which instantly rose in popularity, having been one of the most played tracks in custom track worldwide and is a staple track in competitive play. Furthermore, this track is super complex with a multitude of routes, shortcuts, and custom aspects, so learning how to play this track is super important. That is why today I am going to be breaking down everything there is to know about Desert Fort, including how to drive the course, shortcuts, strategy, bagging, and more. Let's get started. Start by performing a hard right drift at the first turn. For the first ramp, you want to hop onto the end of it to decrease your air time. Proceed by getting a trick, landing in a tail dive, and drifting left as you land. For the next ramp, you can perform a drifting trick to the right to get much less air. After this ramp, there are multiple paths. The fastest route is to continue straight, then trick up onto this rail. Continue to drive on the rail, then hop after the boost panel to avoid having to chain a wheelie. Then trick and hold left to land on the road below. For this trick ramp, I prefer to do a down trick, but performing an up trick works too as long as you land on your tail. You can also align along the very edge of this rail and hop trick for an extra boost. This route can be risky, however, due to it being easily trappable. The next route is to go straight while avoiding the rail. I would only take this path if you intend to go on the rail, but due to bumps or items, you decide not to. There are also two routes to the left and right of the center path. For these routes, perform a drifting trick to the left or right, depending on which path you want to take, and then trick off the next two ramps ahead. Proceed by getting an extra trick off this small gap after reaching the boost panel. This route is barely slower than taking the rail, but you are able to get an item box, so it is actually quite useful. After the split path section, trick off the next two ramps and nosedive. I like to hold left off the second ramp as well to give me a better alignment for the following turn. Hard drift the next turn, then perform a down trick off the next ramp for a good landing. You can also drift trick it for decreased airtime. Hop onto the next brown ramp, then start a right drift as you land. Get a mini turbo, then quickly start a left drift and soft drift so that you can release the following mini turbo before the boost panel. Down trick this next ramp once again for a good landing, then perform a drifting trick to the left off the next brown ramp and land in a tail dive. For the next right turn, you can either chain two mini turbos or get one mini turbo then hit the boost panel on the left. Both strategies are about even, so do whichever you prefer. Right after this boost panel, there are three split routes. The left route is not useful as it is not faster than the right path and you cannot get an item either. The middle route is the safest route and it allows you to easily get an item box, and the right route is the fastest route. For the middle route, trick off the large bump and align for the left corner of the boost panel ahead. Then hit both boost panels and align for the mound of sand where you can hop trick off of it to cut the turn. Then trick off the small ramp and hit the rest of the boost panels to complete the lap. If the thwomps are down, you can still touch the edges of the boost panels. For the right route, align to the right of the large bump and use the boost from the boost panel to trick and land on the brown platform. You can then perform a series of tricks. Start by tricking over this gap to cut the turn. Then trick to land on the light brown platform. As you land on the light brown platform, drift slightly to the right to be properly aligned for the next trick. You can use this corner or the tower in the distance as an indicator for where to align. Trick off the light brown ramp, then drift right as you land to align for the next corner, and get another trick. Once in midair from this trick, start a right drift. Then finish by tricking off the edge of the brown road and finally the rock while maintaining your right drift to land back onto the main road. Another method of doing the ending is to wheelie onto the first rock, drift to the right, and trick off the second rock. This is the method that I use, so try both and see what is easiest for you. All of this saves less than a second from the middle route, so if you do not feel comfortable with this entire sequence, then taking the middle route is recommended. Something to note is that it is also possible to take the right route and get an item box at the same time. You can do this by starting wide, then performing TF inputs off the bump to land on the brown platform. This, however, is only possible with the items that are furthest to the right. At the end of lap 3, you can perform this small shortcut to save some time. To do this, hold a right drift and trick off this corner. Continue to hold your drift until just before this small ramp. Then release your mini turbo and trick as early as possible to gain enough air to pass over the fence. You can also avoid the first corner trick if this helps you align properly. This strategy is very risky. Failing it loses seconds of time, which at the very end of a race is vital. Therefore, only go for this if you are 100% consistent at it. If you have any doubts when approaching this at the end of lap 3, do not go for it. Desert Fort has a multitude of shortcuts. I will be going over them in order from most to least important. Starting with the main single shroom cut. This is the largest and most difficult shortcut on this course. For this shortcut, you want to align along the right side of the road. Start your drift just before the second ramp. Drift hard right and aim for the side of the ramp. Then trick and snap your joystick to the left to get a lot of air. Before landing on the dirt ramp, hold back then shroom right as you land. Continue to drift right and aim for the side of the ramp. Trick and snap your joystick to the left once again to get enough air to make it onto the platform ahead. When you are at the highest point of this trick, release your mini turbo and nosedive for a good landing. You can then perform a drifting trick off the next ramp to get very low air and trick off the final ramp to clear the shortcut. Keep in mind that you are holding a right drift the whole time. Do not release the drift button until you are in midair from the second trick to ensure that you can charge a mini turbo. Drifting just before the second ramp is important, as if you drift too early, you will end up landing too far to the right, making it near impossible to recover onto the final platform. Also, be sure to avoid aligning for the dirt ramp at too tight of an angle, or else you will land too far to the right on the final platform, making the recovery impossible. In this example, the image on the left makes the shortcut successfully, and the image on the right does not. As you can see, the alignments are nearly identical, but the image on the right is aligned slightly too sharp. So you can see how precise this alignment has to be for this shortcut. To recover from a bad alignment into the final platform, you can either hop as you land or try to get a bad landing to shift your vehicle to the left. You can also tail dive in midair, which can give you the extra air you may need to make the shortcut, at the expense of making the recovery more difficult. Overall, this shortcut takes a lot of practice to not only get the air time down, but the recovery as well. You can always do it with multiple shrooms online too. It makes it much easier. Also, if you feel that you are not going to make the cut, you can always bail and land back onto the main road as shown. Overall, this shortcut on its own saves around 3 seconds, as seen in this comparison, and can save you even more time if you combine it with the shroomless shortcut that I will explain later. The next shortcut is located once you enter the castle. For this shortcut, drive through the fake wall, then use your mushroom as you reach the dirt. At the incline, drift left and get a mini turbo, then drift right to reach the boost panels. Finish off by doing a down trick off the ramp for a good landing. This shortcut is clearly much easier than the larger shortcut and saves around half a second less. Next is this shroomless shortcut. Align just to the right of this wall after the right turn and wait until you have driven past the wall to start a left drift. When you hit the first boost panel, you want to be aligned wide, along the edge of the red carpet. Continue to drift left towards the left side of the ramp, then trick and snap your joystick to the right to get more air. Land in a nosedive, then drift left however much is needed to stay on the platform. Also, if you make the main shortcut, the alignment for this shortcut is much easier, so you can easily combine both. This shortcut saves around 1 second, but is easily trappable. The next shortcut is similar to the main shortcut, but on the left side. For this shortcut, aim for the top left corner of this ramp, use your mushroom just before it, and perform a drifting trick to the left. I also like to down trick the ramp for a good landing. As you land on the platform, drift right to avoid falling off. Then trick off the next 2 ramps and wheelie off the 3rd ramp. This shortcut saves almost 3 seconds and is easier than the main shortcut, though there is not much reason to use this over the fake wall shortcut due to its slight difficulty. The final shortcut is the smallest one, but still has some viability. For this shortcut, shroom before the dirt hill and hop trick as you drive onto it for less air. This shortcut can be useful in bottom spots as you can get an item from the middle route. Then take the shortcut to reach the fastest route while saving a little bit of time in the process. In my opinion, Desert Fort is comparable to Dry Ruins when played online, as there are many shortcuts that you can use to catch up, but if you play your cards right, you can front run it too. The fastest, shroomless routes on this course are blind and easily trappable, such as the first rail and both the start and landing of the shroomless cut. There are also other good backstem spots, such as inside the castle or when landing from these tricks on the right route. When in first, it is important that you not only take, but block these routes, to get a big enough lead to hold off those that are taking the shortcuts. The shock plays a huge role on this track. Not only is dodging and taking the shortcuts very helpful, but those who are small cannot take the right path at the end. That being said, the most common shock spots are second set and just before the right path at the end. The former being common so the user can chain for the shortcuts, and the latter to target shock everyone, forcing them to go around. I do not recommend dropping for better items in mid spots unless the pack is very close, as trying to cheese mushrooms in the middle is definitely viable here, due to the large amount of shortcuts. Finally, like I've said in other track tutorials, don't go for anything that you are not fully confident with. I know it's ironic coming from someone who makes this mistake all the time, but the risk is generally not worth it. There are also a few special item boxes on this course. If you fall down to the left here, you are guaranteed a red shell, and if you bounce off this pad after the shroomless cut, you can get a guaranteed bomb. I figured it was about time I touched on bagging in these tutorials too, since there are very few resources when it comes to CT bagging. This next clip shows you exactly how to bag Desert Fort, which in my opinion is one of the most unique tracks when it comes to bagging. A quick thank you goes to Signal for teaching me how to do this, as I am not a bagger. if you happen to pull mushrooms, you can mushroom through this off-road section to save a lot of time over the other bagger. To get over these two ramps, align almost parallel with the ramp. Charge a standstill mini turbo, then at the peak of your wheelie, hop to get up. For this section, you need to perform a wall bounce by hopping right as you hit the wall to get air. You can also do what I explained earlier if you struggle with the wall bounce. And that is all for this tutorial. I know that was a lot to cover, but I wanted to make sure I had everything in one video if you ever need it. As always, if you enjoyed or learned something from this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are not already. It would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.